You have to tell me the truth. Is your dad seeing another woman? My mom whispered. The divorce split my life like a cracked windshield, jagged lines running through everything I knew. I was 14, bouncing between mom's cramped apartment with its chipped mugs and faded couch cushions and dad's new place. A modest house with creaky floors and a backyard that always smelled faintly of charcoal from his grill. They despised each other with a ferocity that hung in the air like smoke, and I was caught in the crossfire, a kid trying to navigate two warring worlds. Mom always framed her questions about Dad as concern for me, but it was more than that. She'd sit me down at her wobbly kitchen table, her coffee going cold, and grill me about his every move. What time did he get home? Was he on the phone a lot? Did he buy anything new, like clothes or groceries? At first, I thought she just wanted to know I was okay at his place. But her questions grew sharper, her eyes narrowing as she waited for details. It started innocently enough. She'd ask about Dad's routines, whether he was still ordering pizza 3 nights a week or if he seemed tired after work. I'd tell her about the takeout containers piling up in his kitchen or how he'd leave his sneakers by the door. Laces tangled. Felt like small talk, like she was trying to stay connected to my life. But soon, her requests got specific. She wanted to know if he was talking to anyone new, if he'd mentioned a woman's name, if he was going out after I went to bed. I'd shrug, unsure, but she'd lean in, her voice low and insistent, saying I had to tell her the truth. If I didn't have answers, her face would harden, and she'd accuse Dad of turning me against her, planting ideas in my head. The guilt hit like a wave, drowning me in shame, and I'd scramble to give her something to ease the tension. I hated how her disappointment made me feel like I'd failed her. By 15, things escalated. She started asking me to take pictures. I'd be at Dad's, where he'd try to make weekends normal, grilling burgers, letting me pick the music, or binge-watching old comedies on his lumpy couch. One Saturday, while he was in the shower, Mom texted me to snap a photo of his phone or any receipts on the counter. My hands shook as I crept into his room, the hum of the water masking my steps. I felt like a thief, my heart hammering as I took a blurry shot of his phone on the nightstand. I didn't even know what I was looking for, but I sent it to her, my stomach twisting. She called right away, asking me to check his texts. I whispered that I couldn't. He'd be out soon, and I didn't have his passcode. Her voice turned sharp, saying I wasn't trying hard enough, that I owed her for everything she'd sacrificed. She started talking about privileges, my laptop, my phone, hanging out with friends. If I didn't help, those could disappear. I felt cornered, like I was betraying Dad just to keep her from pulling away. Every visit to Dad's became a mission. I'd notice little things to report, hoping it'd keep her calm. The way he'd hum while cooking, or how he'd bought a new jacket that looked too nice for his usual style. I'd memorize details like a spy in a movie, hating myself for it but too scared to stop. Mom would listen, scribbling notes, her lips pressed tight. I didn't realize what she was doing until I overheard her talking to her lawyer, mentioning Dad's extravagant purchases and erratic behavior. She was using my reports to build a case, to argue he didn't deserve alimony or to limit his time with me. It hit me that I wasn't just sharing updates. I was her tool, feeding her ammunition to hurt him. The realization made my chest ache, but I didn't know how to break free. She'd cry sometimes, saying Dad was a bad person, that he'd hurt us both, and I had to protect our family. I wanted to believe her, to feel like I was doing something noble, but deep down, I knew it was wrong. At 16, the weight of it was unbearable. I'd lie awake at Mom's, staring at the glow-in-the-dark stars on my ceiling, dreading her next text. I started having nightmares. Dad catching me sneaking through his stuff, his face crumpling with betrayal. At his place, I'd avoid his eyes, terrified he'd see the guilt written all over me. He'd try to connect, asking about my day or suggesting we go for ice cream, but I'd mumble excuses and hide in my room. The distance between us grew, and I hated myself for building that wall. I wanted to tell him everything, to spill the truth, but Mom's threats loomed large. She'd made it clear. If I didn't help, I was choosing him over her. Losing her felt unthinkable. She was the one who'd tucked me in every night, who'd braided my hair for school pictures, who'd driven me to soccer practice even when she was exhausted. The idea of her shutting me out was a knife to the heart. Update 1. Things came to a head just after my 17th birthday. I was at Dad's, helping him organize the garage, when I found a box of old photos buried under some tools. There we were, Mom, Dad, and me at a beach trip, building a lopsided sandcastle, all of us laughing with sunburned noses. I sat on the cold garage floor, tears pricking my eyes, and Dad sat beside me, quiet. He didn't say much, just looked at the pictures with me, his shoulder brushing mine. For the first time in years, I felt like we were a team, not pawns in Mom's game. That moment flipped a switch in me. I couldn't keep spying, it was destroying me, and it was killing whatever chance I had to rebuild things with Dad. When I got back to Mom's, I told her I was done. No more photos, no more reports. Her face went still, then flushed red. She didn't yell, which scared me more. Her voice was like ice, saying I'd chosen Dad's side, that if I wanted to be with him, I could stay there and not come back to her. I was floored. I'd braced for anger, maybe tears, but not this. A line drawn in the sand. My hands trembled as I packed a duffel bag, shoving in clothes and my favorite books. I went to Dad's, my heart in my throat, and told him I needed to stay for a while. He didn't pry, just nodded and made up the guest room with fresh sheets. The next morning, he asked if I wanted waffles, like nothing had changed. For a week, I kept to myself, replaying Mom's words, feeling like I'd lost her for good. The guilt and grief were suffocating, but I couldn't go back to being her spy. I spent hours walking around Dad's neighborhood, kicking at pebbles, trying to make sense of it all. I missed her, missed the way things used to be, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd been used. Update 2. Then came the first plot twist, one that turned my world upside down. I was grabbing coffee near Dad's, scrolling through my phone, when a friend texted about seeing Mom's car parked outside a sketchy office downtown. Curious, I looked up the address. It was a private investigator's office, the kind with frosted windows and a flickering neon sign. My stomach dropped as I dug deeper, finding online reviews about the guy, specializing in discreet surveillance for divorce cases. One review mentioned working with a client a few years ago, right around when my parents split. It hit me like a slap. Mom hadn't just started this with me. She'd hired a PI before the divorce was even final, probably before she ever asked me to spy. All those times she'd pushed me to sneak around, to betray Dad, she'd already had someone else doing the same thing. I felt like a fool, a pawn in a game I didn't even know I was playing. The betrayal cut deeper than anything, deeper than her threats, deeper than the guilt of spying. I sat in that coffee shop, my latte untouched, tears streaming down my face. I'd spent years carrying her secrets, hurting Dad, only to learn she'd been manipulating me from the start. I didn't confront her. The hurt was too raw, and I didn't trust myself not to scream. Instead, I focused on Dad. I started opening up, helping him chop vegetables for dinner, laughing at his terrible puns. We'd watch old sci-fi movies, arguing over which alien was the creepiest, and I'd catch myself smiling, really smiling, for the first time in ages. He never asked why I'd moved in full-time, but I think he knew something had broken with Mom. I stopped checking my phone obsessively, stopped flinching at every notification. It wasn't easy. Some nights, I'd lie awake, missing Mom's laugh, her way of making hot cocoa with extra marshmallows. But I couldn't go back to that life, to being her tool. Update 3 months later, I turned 18, and graduation loomed. I was figuring out college applications, stressing over essays, but Dad was there, reading drafts and making me laugh with his awful handwriting notes. He cheered louder than anyone when I crossed the stage, his voice booming over the crowd. Mom sent a card with some cash and a note saying she was proud, but I didn't see her. It stung, but I was learning to live with the ache. Then came the second plot twist, the one that shook me to my core. I was at Mom's, picking up the last of my stuff while she was out. I'd been avoiding her place, but I needed my old sketchbooks and winter clothes. Under her bed, I found a journal, its cover worn and pages curling. I knew I shouldn't, but I opened it. Page after page spilled out her fears, her anger, her guilt. She wrote about the divorce, how she'd been terrified Dad was hiding money, cheating, leaving us behind. She'd hired the PI because she felt helpless, but she'd pushed me to spy because she wanted to keep me close, to feel like we were a team. She wrote about hating herself for it, for putting me in that position, but not knowing how to stop without losing me. I sat on her floor, the journal heavy in my hands, crying for the first time in months. It didn't erase the pain or the years of manipulation, but it showed me her side, the mess of fear and love that drove her. I didn't forgive her, not completely, but I understood a fraction more. I left the journal where I found it, grabbed my things and walked out, locking the door behind me. I haven't seen her since, but I keep her card in my wallet, a quiet reminder that love can be tangled and flawed. Final update. It's been a year since I found the journal. I'm in college now, living in a dorm with a roommate who leaves dishes everywhere but makes killer playlists. Dad and I talk every week, and he's teaching me how to change a tire over video calls, which is equal parts hilarious and infuriating. I haven't reached out to Mom, but a cousin mentioned she's been asking about me, wondering how I'm doing. I'm not ready to call her, but I think about it sometimes, especially when I pass the coffee shop where we used to get muffins on Sundays. I'm figuring out who I am outside their war, finding my own rhythm in late-night study sessions and impromptu road trips with friends. The scars from those years are still there, faint but real, but I'm learning to trust my own path. For the first time, I feel like I'm carrying my own story, not theirs.